ability to, even if it's not their own life, even if they're noble enough to just sacrifice their lives for other people, how are you protecting your family? How are you protecting your property? How are you protecting your pets? How are you protecting them in a world that's going violence and the government is hell-bent on disarming you? What's your plan? G'day folks, Mark here again. I've got some things I want to put forward out of the last video I did explaining a little bit about some of what I could see was what was happening and some of the things and the convenient circumstances that had created this crisis and how the government was using it in various fashions. And I suppose there's to the woken up people, or to the people that were, be it in the firearms community or the woken up in the more conservative side of things, or woken up through COVID or whatever it is, that people that have sort of taken the rose-coloured glasses off and can see a little bit more, there was a lot of agreement with that sort of stuff. But inside there's people who need it to go down a particular narrative and don't really, well, I suppose there's some questions I have to ask of you. The largest one is probably actually explaining how much firearms is to do with this. It is not the core ingredient of where the hate comes from. It is not probably the core ingredient of the political outside this country process and some inside this country process of Islam and Israel and Palestine and all the other bits and pieces going on that side of things. Not clear, not something I want to get into. I really dislike people being judged by their government or by people in their government. I would not like to be judged as an Australian as anything like Mr. Albanese. So I don't think we should judge people, the people, by the government. But that's as close as I want to get to that sort of thing. Yes, there's some massive issues, but the actual timing of this, the actual process that actually happened that then used that political thing about firearms is so very relevant. And I want people to try and wake up to something here. But there's a couple of angles to that. So I suppose to start off with, what I'd go with is to explain a bit of the situation. Why there's some people where we say clearly, and a lot of people can see, not most, maybe just some people can see clearly, is that some of this whole strategy was about disarming and controlling. Some people don't want to believe either one of those. Not disarming, controlling. No, we've just got a government that dropped the ball a little bit and that's about everything else. Or the Zionists in our government that are trying to do it. All those things. And no, it's got nothing to do with disarming and controlling. It has, by the nature of government, of parliamentarians, and even of mainstream, start to see that there is. If you look at West Australians' gun laws, which came out of yes, it came from here, but in the same time, in up to, I don't know how many years ago, but at least 3 years ago, probably at least 10 years ago, but at least 3 years ago, serious talks between all the police departments in the country and the government side of the police departments in the country, talking about strategies they had about how to implement far stronger gun laws. And there's a very simple reason for that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But there definitely is the disarming side of things, particularly when you look at the laws that we have brought into here, the 2024 Firearms Act of Western Australia. If you go in and read the details, I'm doing up a big paper on that. If you go and read the details, it is about complete disarmament. It's all written inside there. Henry VIII clauses, so many things that people who haven't read it, you would be shocked if you keep the thinking hat on and you go through and read what is actually there, and then what it can turn into. Like I said, I'm putting together something so you see it more clearly as to how completely separate to democracy, completely overriding, just a really insidious piece of legislation designed to disarm and do it by disrespecting, by taking away rights, by just basically hammering them, because if you have a firearm, you're a bad person by the nature of you have firearms. Doesn't matter what else that you've done. When you see that, then the act starts to make sense as to how it's written. So that is something that is real. Disarmament is real. As for where the whole government wants to do it, okay, I can tell you why they're involved or how I can see that is obvious. I can explain a little more also. As for the control, there's a very simple thing about that ultimately it's where governments end up, more control. Simply, there is less, you make a mistake in a system you don't have control over, you reap the consequences of that. You have control, you make a mistake, or you go down a road where people don't want it to because it's more convenient for you and less convenient for the people. Well, in a system you don't have control, well, that's a lot harder to do. It's a lot easier if you have control. If you have the control over everything, people listen to you, people are controlled, particularly by using separation and fear, it's a lot easier to govern a place. That's not a strategy that's been come up with now. That's been around for literally thousands of years. If you can keep them separated and divided and fighting against each other and frightened, have a common fear that the government then help you with, that actually gives them more control. That's as simple as that, and for the simple reason of it makes it easier to do. They can make the decisions more, and some of our laws, like I just mentioned, the likes of the Henry VIII clause, are laws that are basically, for people who don't understand what we're talking about there, they're laws that let the government change things without asking even the government. So a particular part of the government can say, listen, well, I'm not really happy with the situation. They will put it under the bracket so they can refine things as things go forward. So it's nice and easy there. But the trick is they don't have to explain to anyone what they're doing. They don't have to ask anyone what they're doing. And they will express, as our minister and commissioner over here have said, oh no, well, we'll have the media checking us and we'll have the parliament checking us and there'll be all the other lawyers checking us and SAT or a review board checking us. But then you go through the laws that you realise that they've taken those out. They've either bought them and got them on the side or they've taken out those powers. So it turns into where, yes, it comes down to ministers and commissioners and people that can make changes to suit them, completely suit them. So you don't like what they're talking about, so you're quite happy that they take it all away. Okay, that works fine. What if it's you that they're targeting? What if it's your freedoms they're targeting? What if it's your travel you're targeting, or your vehicle they're targeting, or what your kids learn at school they're targeting? They decide, no, you and the government and everyone else doesn't have a choice, it's just me. So it turns from something, and that's why it's called Henry VIII, it turns from something where he was trying to do something in a constructive fashion, he made rules to suit this, it turned to absolute mud, turned into a horrible thing, so much so that he's known for making a terrible law that, well, over in Western Australia, and if you look at what's happening over in New South Wales now, the same sort of things are coming into place. Federally, they want to do the same things. I can make laws, you don't have any say in it because I know better. Very, very dangerous way, very not democratic, and very dangerous thing to happen. So that's the control thing. The next bit as to why would the police force want to disarm a population? Why would they want to do that? We don't actually have a firearm problem. Yes, every firearm issue there is, they focus on the bad guy with a gun. They don't focus on it was fixed with a good guy with a gun. No, that's never the way. They focus on every firearm instance is elevated to an extreme level. When it's medical malpractice, when it's diabetes, when it's whatever else it is, of the vast majority of where deaths are, slipping over and conking yourself in the bath, we don't focus on that at all because there's no political power in that situation, there's no issues. So we actually don't have a firearm problem at all. We have bad things happen with firearms. You take them away, it'll be with trucks or knives or acid or bombs or whatever it is in this sort of situation. I don't want to be too blasé about the horrible thing that has happened to people and the terrible situation we're in. But I do need you to focus on the reality of this situation. Firearms weren't the cause of this problem. Bad people were the cause of this problem. And all the other things we mentioned previously. But what is a big problem for the police force is they are suffering the nature of any police force. They want no weapons, nothing that can be used against them out in the community. So that's a simple thing, because they aren't focusing on what's best for you. You protecting yourself, your freedoms, that sort of stuff. No, that's not what's important to them. What's important to them is the protection of themselves. That is even more highlighted when you look at the bans on toy guns, or things that could look a little bit like guns. They want to ban all of them. Why is that? You say, what a ridiculous, what absurd thing. We know it's happening. In some places it gets pushed back, but we know it's happening all over the Western world actually, but particularly in Australia. They'll come right down to banning Nerf guns. Why would you want to ban such things? It's a very simple thing. Their officers might make a mistake. Their officers might shoot someone who was just a kid that was playing with them, but they thought the gun was real. And because the officers aren't, the issue with the police force is not that the officers are bad by any means. Yes, there's some bad in everything. The hierarchy are more the people that the problem we're dealing with, but it's about protecting their officers. All over the country, more and more police forces are losing the people that are skilled at the job. And not just skilled at the job by training, by time, by experience, skilled at the job because they were a bit more born to do the job. They're the sheepdogs, for want of a better term. They're the people that are more capable of, where they have clarity under fire. They're the people who make decisions in high stress situations. They're the people that we want to think a police officer is. They'll walk forward towards a firearm and calm that person down and put it down. That's not how our police force works anymore. You know that. They shoot centre mass because someone's got a fork and looks angry. We know that's happened. That's been happening. So the police force, by both the people that are staying in the job and the people that are doing the job, and not necessarily the people that are going to be calm under fire, and not necessarily the people, as we just saw, when it came to that point, they went to their natural state. And their training is still going to be part of it, but their training isn't to protect you. I need people to understand it is not to protect you. It is to protect themselves, and it is to enforce the legislation. That's their training. So they have things to calm things down and defuse and things when they've got enough control in the situation. But if they're in fight or flight mode, because there is a real threat, a real present danger to their life there, the officer you want will find a way to combat that, will find that way to shut it down. And yes, what was very clearly obvious at this terrorist event, one officer, positioned well, firing his Glock handgun at them would have subdued them and saved everybody's lives. And maybe it took one shot to happen, they were standing out obvious with guns, moving around the place. There were people that saw what was going on right at the beginning. If there were people reacting to that before a shot was fired in that direction, there was a shot fired in that direction. They had police officers there. That could have happened. I would go to the level of 50 years ago, there would have been a kid's 22 in a boot of a parked car, that someone, even a kid, could have held these people at bay with enough presence of mind, and simply through the fact that they were exposed in this absurd situation where they could be, because nothing was coming back. Not for 20 minutes, I think, is the time. I don't want to blame the individual officers by any means. Don't want to go there. That's not, you can't make a human be the human that it isn't, regardless of the circumstances. They were doing as well as they could. The fact there were no other police officers, the way they didn't have proper people there, proper security there, proper all those things, yes, that's a massive issue, which I'll get into in a minute. But the simple thing is, police departments want to disarm because they do not want any threat or any responsibility that isn't easy for them to put in. So that's a toy gun. They end up shooting someone. They're in a lot of trouble because it was a toy gun and they panicked in that situation rather than reading the situation and doing things thoroughly. Yeah, that's the nature of where our police forces are, and that's what the hierarchy are actually covering. All guns out of the community works fine for them. Or if only the bad guys have got guns, well, that's fine, because they can shoot them and they're bad guys anyway. So there's a little bit of that side of things as well. Yes, they're not doing much about the million illegal firearms that are in the country. So those things are very, very relevant. The next bit I want to get into is the actual situation, which people seem to, listen, I put forward a fair bit of these convenient circumstances that line up to where in the first day, the Prime Minister and the Premier are saying we're going to do stuff about guns. Guns is the problem here. Come on, guys. Everyone who's paying attention knows. The whole world's looking at this and says, okay, you've got a false flag event that was set up to create other situations, and our government is choosing to focus on firearms. Of course, just prior to this, we had lots of controversy with lots of the E-Safety Commissioner that's trying to shut down the internet as much as it possibly can, trying to bring in a digital ID, which we all realise what's going on there. The under 16 things is a little bit more of a cover with sort of a logic to it, with a lot of irrationalness to it as well. But the digital ID we can see is what's actually trying to get wedged in here. We've got ministers that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars flying all over the place, so all this sort of stuff. Well, that conversation's gone, isn't it? We're on to this conversation. And the immigration, well, there is issues and we'll have to look at things and check it a little bit properly. We dropped the ball a little bit there, but guns, we're going to focus on guns. At exactly the time they needed this to happen. Exactly the time they needed this to happen. They can jam something through, goes over Chris where no one can talk about, nothing happening in Parliament, so we can jam some laws through, which is what we're going to do here. And I haven't seen all of them, but a 80-page document that all of a sudden come out of a drawer in the police force to actually go through and fix these problems here. Okay, that wasn't set up already. I said about this timing and the fact that we have a big national firearms registration agreement, whatever's going on, that's coming over 2 years, 26 to 28. Just prior to that, we have this incident. But I'll tell you another interesting, less than convenient circumstance to them, if you think about it. 2023, the father who got the licensed firearms. I'll get into the licensed firearms bit because it's another bit that it just stinks too much not to say it out loud. But 2023, well, that was the same time that over in Western Australia, and as I said, these forces have conferences and meetings and what they're up to. There is a overall plan that's happening that maybe people are starting to realise that is the case when you stop and look at how this is rolling down. But 2023, well, we happen to have just prior to us forcing in laws that just needed to happen under emergency so no one could talk about them and you couldn't go forward, and they didn't go through Parliament, and they properly, all this process because of an emergency where our police force chose to not do what the doctors said, not do what the women said, and let a man with a large brain tumour actually murder 2 women. This actually happened, and with just an oversight. It was just a miss. It was just, oopsie, we didn't do this. Happens to be the same time where they were oversighting things over in New South Wales and let a man that was known and connected to a ISIS or a terrorist organisation, I don't know the finer details on it, but actually let him get firearms. And over the next couple of years, let him progress them into 6 firearms, licensed firearms. Which I said there's licensed firearms, and this licensed firearms owner, which was just an oopsie that it got through. There were 3 years, 2020 applied, 2023 it got approved, same time as things were happening over here. Then each time to get another firearm, he had to go through another thing. This wasn't just an accidental miss. There's other things I've heard about the club or the shooting club that he was with actually got disbanded and disarmed. I don't know if that's true or not. But what I would say is licensed firearms for a terrorist act. So jihad, whatever that connection is, there's obviously connections. They're starting to draw them together. We have a million legal firearms in Australia. Why would they bother with using licensed firearms? Why would they bother with that? There's going to be semi-automatic firearms and things like that illegally that they could find in Australia, in the way of making more terror, making a more military style thing to make even more fear, that sort of stuff. Well, that would work. Why would they use licensed firearms? Now, honestly tell me that there's not some parts of a big propaganda spin, a big psyop as they call it, to actually have licensed firearms. It's the worst thing for our licensed firearms owners because we're going to get blamed for it. Doesn't matter all the rest. We're going to get blamed for it. We're going to take it in the neck. But why licensed firearms? So you can say to yourself, okay, no, they're not connected. No, that's all. You're just a gun nut. You just want some attention. You're just trying to paint this picture a different way, or you're just talking like the America. All the different comments I hear. But really, honestly, put it all together. Put it all together. There is no question as to this was at least let happen. I would have to say, when you dot the I's and cross the T's in the investigation process of what happened, just out of what we know, it's way, way, way too convenient. So there's a lot more details. I went through more of them previously. There's a lot more you can go into the details. Really, this is about a different thing. You have to go through there is a, I suppose, simple and pragmatic approaches to why things are happening, why the government would like more control, why the police forces and the government would like to disarm us. There's obviously far bigger nature of what happens in history after a population is disarmed. But let's say, okay, that's not the situation this time. I think that's a bit foolhardy. History is there for a reason, or learning history is valuable for a reason. But what I would say is, have you thought about something which just was made extraordinarily clear? The police force are not there to protect you. That's not their job. That's not what they're going to do. And it turns out that's, to the largest degree, not even what they're capable of. So, what's your plan? Where do you sit? And this is the message I want to give to not the firearms owner. I'll explain a little bit more about it in a second, but to the non-firearms owner. Well, even if you're on this, if you can see all this, but what's your plan? But particularly those people who say, no, you're talking rubbish. You just want to keep your firearms. You're just a gun nut. Or no, you're just a conspiracy theorist. You wear a tinfoil hat. Oh, okay, fair enough. Throw all that my way. But what's your plan? You can see very, very clearly in right now, real time, the police force are not going to protect you. This country is getting more violent. Now, be that from outside forces or from inside forces or however it is, getting more and more violent. So the chances of you getting in your house, out in the street, in all of your life, the chances of something violent happening to you or yours or your property, the chances of something bad happening is raising. Now, it's still pretty low. We're in Australia, but it's raising. What's your plan? Is it really you're going to be happy with, oh, oops, it happened to me, so no, I just have to go with the punches and see what happens? Is that the plan? What I can tell you is that I don't know about the numbers. I can't speak for everyone, but I would say I can speak for myself in this situation, and I think there's a fair bit of firearms owners in general. We know you're not allowed to have a firearm for self-defense purposes, in the way buy it for self-defense. For some reason or other, we're not allowed to. Very, very peculiar situation. Actually having something to defend yourself is a basic human right. If you're in threat of that sort of stuff, the police force aren't going to help you. It's a bit of it's a fundamental right that your right of life that's actually been removed from you if you want to follow that thought through. But you can have a firearm with a reason, and that's what everyone does, whether it's hunting, whether it's competition, whether it's whatever it is. And yes, when you get your firearm, you have to do a certain amount of that. You have to go and do that, so we'll follow the rules. But do you really think that we have firearms that aren't there to potentially be able to protect us in the worst case scenario? We're fully aware of the legal consequences, not something we ever want to do. It is there is a poem, the Parabellum, which largely says, if you want peace, prepare for war. Which means, if you don't want to be attacked, prepare to be attacked, or to prepare to be able to attack back. Prepare to be able to defend yourself. So, yes, there's a whole heap of us that actually went through this process of, it isn't just because I want to go hunting. It isn't just because I want to have competition, do this stuff. Yes, I'm happy to do that. It's very interesting. It's fun to do, actually, if you try it. But the course, certainly for myself, the first time I went with something or other was I wanted not just to be able to protect myself. I'm a 6'4" male, a healthy one, but I wanted to protect others. I wanted to be able to do things if things mattered. Now that may be whether it was pest control for other people in the way of helping that sort of stuff, but it also meant my first personal firearm was a shotgun. It meant that if things really went down, I had a lethal threat. Do I ever want to use it? Of course I don't. But I've got to tell you, a pump action shotgun, it does tend to send shivers up even people who don't understand firearms. It is a lethal threat. Have I used it? No. Do I want to use it? No. If I do use it, would I be probably more legal consequences than life? No. Than other people's life? Well, no. It would be a horrible thing to go through, but I would be able to help. So firearms owners actually have made a very pragmatic decision. As for what you're up to, that's my question. What's your plan? The police aren't going to help. I would go with, if you don't want to, having a neighbour that has something that could protect you, that could probably work. That could probably cut down that 20-minute break for the police officers to get around down to 30 seconds, maybe 90 seconds. There is a way, there is someone to call. When you have your young daughter who's going to go and wherever it is into dangerous places, wouldn't you feel more confident if she just had a little .22 handgun in her purse to be able to protect herself? But sending her out there is fine because in this violent world. And let's think a little further down that road of where the UK is and the situation that they've been through with the disarmed population and the nasty things that are happening. I'm not going to get into the details of that. If you don't know, do some research. But this is not okay. This is the right to defend your life is a basic human right. And there is a pragmatic answer to this. Would it be better if there are no firearms? Listen, I don't think it changes much at all, to be truthful. Knives, the people kill people with fists. A large male can kill a small male or a small female with bare hands, right down to all the other horrible things that live in this world. The ability to defend yourself is more likely to create a peaceful world. The problem obviously isn't about the weapon. The problem is about whether it's a religion, ideology, culture, whatever it is, the governing, the financial side of things, the fact the whole world is in debt to whoever it is that has all the money. There's lots of other things to fix, don't get me wrong. But it comes back to me, you answer that question. What's your plan? And to say it's not about, this isn't structured, this isn't planned about disarming the population as the key ingredient that is, for the timing at least of this event, is to not really pay attention to what's going on. This is timed specifically to suit bringing in these firearms regulations, very specifically. No, it isn't the cause of the terror you just saw. I understand that completely. And yes, there's so many other things involved with it, both in global politics, but in religion, ideology, all those sort of things, all part of this, no, without any question. But the timing of this and the licensed firearms, there are too many clues to say this is done with too much input from people that you trust. So as for, did they orchestrate? Not saying that. I am saying the timing of this means something else is involved. The immediate follow through with gun regulations, which also, like I said, there is the distraction. No, you're not talking about this and that Penny Wong's been under fire, they've all been under fire. That all settles into this other thing where they can make the right little gestures towards immigration and we can remove most of the firearms and then they're back to good guys again, aren't they? That's the plan. That's how governments roll. And yes, it is for specific reasons. So please wake up. Please share to people of that. That's it. But what's their plan? What's their ability to, even if it's not their own life, even if they're noble enough to just sacrifice their lives for other people, how are you protecting your family? How are you protecting your property? How are you protecting your pets? How are you protecting them in a world that's going violence and the government is hell-bent on disarming you? What's your plan? Anyway, that's my video for today. I hope that makes some sense. Thank you much for checking in, and we'll catch you next time.